I spent the night with two widowed. What they did to me was shocking. It was a quiet Friday evening, and the city seemed unusually calm. People were finishing their work, heading home, and the streets were filled with the low hum of cars and distant laughter from families enjoying the end of the week. Among them was Armin, a man in his late 20s who had spent the day immersed in paperwork at his office. Burrs. He usually preferred quiet nights at home, alone with a book or the television. But today, a small note in his mailbox had changed his plans. The note was simple, written on a neat piece of cream-colored paper. "You are invited to a small gathering tonight at 8. Come. It will be a night to remember." There was no name, no address, only a phone number at the bottom. For a moment, Armand thought it might be a prank, something left by a mischievous neighbor or a friend. But curiosity got the better of him. He called the number, and a gentle, welcoming voice answered. "Hello?" Armand said cautiously. "Good evening." "This is from Mrs. Nadia and Mrs. Samira. We sent you the invitation." "We hope you can come," the voice said warmly. Armand paused. He didn't know these women, but the tone was kind, inviting, almost impossible to refuse. I think I can." "May I have your address?" he asked. After receiving the directions, he hung up and sat on his couch for a few minutes, debating whether to go. Something about the invitation felt mysterious, almost like stepping into a story rather than a normal night. He shook his head and smiled. "Why not?" he whispered to himself. "It's just a gathering." Nothing dangerous. By 7:45, he was ready. He wore his casual clothes, simple and neat, hoping not to seem too formal, but also not out of place. The streets were dimly lit as he drove to the address he had been given, perhaps. The area was calm, a quiet neighborhood with houses that had old charm, with gardens and lanterns lining the paths. When he arrived at the house, he noticed it was slightly older than the others on the street.
Its walls had a soft, warm color, and the lights in the windows glowed gently. Before he could knock, the door opened.
There stood Mrs. Nadia, a woman in her late 40s, with soft eyes that seemed to carry both kindness and sadness. Her hair was streaked with gray, but it only added to the warmth of her smile. Behind her, another woman appeared, Mrs. O. Samira. She was slightly younger, perhaps in her early 40s, with sharp features and a confident presence. Both women wore simple, elegant clothes, giving the impression that they cared about appearances but were more focused on comfort. "Welcome," Nadia said, stepping aside to let him in. "We're so glad you could come." Armin stepped inside, and the house immediately made him feel a mix of comfort and curiosity. The living room was cozy, filled with soft furniture, warm colors, and shelves lined with books, photographs, and small trinkets. The air smelled faintly of lavender, and a soft music played in the background. Something classical, gentle, almost like a lullaby. "Make yourself comfortable," she said. "We don't have many guests, so it will be a small evening." "We hope you enjoy it," Armin nodded, still a little surprised by the calmness and warmth of the house. He took a seat on the sofa, glancing around at the photos. Each picture told a story. Pictures of family gatherings, vacations, and moments of celebration. But there were also moments of sadness. One photograph showed Nadia holding a young boy, her smile bright, but her eyes carrying a quiet grief.
Another photo showed Samira standing alone on a beach, looking thoughtful, almost lost in memories.
"Those are your children?" Armin asked carefully, noticing the boy in the photo. Nadia shook her head softly. Bird. No, I lost him many years ago. Life, it can be unpredictable, she said, her voice gentle but carrying the weight of emotion. Inspiration. Samira placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We've both lost someone we loved, Samira added. Breath. Life has a way of teaching us lessons we never asked for. Armin felt a strange mix of sympathy and curiosity. These women had experienced pain, yet there was strength in them, a resilience that was almost palpable. Brr. He realized he was sitting among two people who had seen the worst of life and still chosen to embrace it with grace.
As the evening progressed, they chatted comfortably.
The conversation started light, discussing books, music, and movies, but gradually moved to stories about the past, stories of love, loss, and learning to live again. Armand found himself sharing small pieces of his own life, talking about his work, his family, and moments of disappointment he had faced. The women listened attentively, offering advice or just a comforting word. There was a rhythm to the conversation, like a dance, sometimes playful, sometimes serious, always engaging. Then came a moment that made Armand pause. Inspiration. Nadia looked at him intently and asked, Have you ever spent a night somewhere that changed you?
Armin laughed lightly, unsure how to answer. I don't think so.
Brr. I've had good nights and bad nights, but nothing life-changing, he admitted. Samira leaned forward, her eyes twinkling. Inspiration. Tonight could be one of those nights, she said mysteriously. But it depends on whether you are open to it. Armin felt a shiver run down his spine, not of fear, but of anticipation. Inspiration. He didn't know what they meant, but there was something in the way they said it, a hint that the night ahead was unusual, something beyond ordinary. Dinner was served soon after. Inspiration. It wasn't a lavish meal, just simple home-cooked food that smelled delicious. They ate together, sharing stories about the recipes and traditions behind each dish. Armin noticed that the women worked seamlessly together, their gestures small but precise, as if they had done this countless times before. There was a rhythm to their actions, almost hypnotic in its perfection. After dinner, Nadia suggested they move to the lounge, where the fire was burning softly. The flames danced, casting shadows on the walls and creating an intimate atmosphere. Samira poured tea for all three of them, the aroma filling the room. They sat close enough to talk, but with enough space to feel comfortable. Tell us, Samira said suddenly, her voice gentle but insistent. What is the one secret you've never shared with anyone?
Armin hesitated.
He wasn't sure if he should answer, but there was something in their eyes, an understanding, a safe presence, that made him open up. He spoke about his fears, his regrets, and the moments when he felt truly alone. He didn't realize it. But as he spoke, the women listened with intensity, nodding, sometimes offering a quiet word, sometimes just a smile. Time seemed to slow down. A night outside grew darker, and the sounds of the city faded. It was just the three of them, sharing stories, sharing laughter, and sometimes sharing silence. Inspiration. The atmosphere was heavy with emotion, yet strangely comforting. Armin felt like he was stepping into a world that existed somewhere between reality and a dream. Then came the moment that truly changed the tone of the evening.
Nadia looked at Armand with a serious expression.
We want you to stay the night, she said. Not because we insist, but because some lessons are better understood when experienced fully. Stay the night? Repeated, unsure if he understood correctly.
Yes, Samira said, smiling softly.
Inspiration. Tonight is not an ordinary night. And sometimes, ordinary minds cannot grasp extraordinary experiences unless they are present in them.
We want you to see, feel, and understand.
Narration.
Armin's heart raced. The idea was unexpected, but strangely intriguing.
Barash. He could feel the curiosity building inside him, pushing aside hesitation. Something in the room, the warmth, the stories, the strength of these women, made him want to accept her. He nodded slowly, feeling both nervous and excited. As he prepared to follow them to the guest room, he couldn't shake the feeling that this night would not be ordinary. There was a sense of anticipation, almost like stepping into a story that had already begun before he arrived. And in that anticipation, our man realized one thing clearly. By staying, he was about to enter a world that he had never imagined, a night full of mysteries, emotions, and surprises that would change him forever. The guest room was smaller than Armand had expected, but it had a warm charm that made him feel at ease almost immediately. The walls were painted a soft cream, and a small window allowed the moonlight to spill across the floor. A neatly made bed occupied the center, and a small table beside it held a lamp and a few books. A gentle lavender scent lingered in the air, the same comforting aroma from earlier in the living room. Armand set down his bag and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to make sense of everything that had happened so far. The two widowed women, Nadia and Samira, had created an atmosphere that felt both inviting and mysterious. There was a calmness about them, but behind it he sensed layers of stories, experiences, and perhaps secrets they were yet to reveal. After a few minutes, there was a soft knock on the door. "Armand, may we come in?" Nadia's voice sounded gentle, yet there was an intensity in it that made him stand up immediately. "Of course," he replied, smoothing his clothes nervously. Both women entered, carrying small trays with glasses of warm milk and honey. They placed the drinks on the table and sat on chairs near the window. The fire from the lounge still cast a faint glow in the room, making shadows dance on the walls. "We wanted to bring you something to help you relax," Samira said, her voice soft and soothing.
It's a tradition in our family to have this before a night of storytelling. Armin accepted the glass, taking a careful sip. The warmth spread through him, calming some of the nerves he hadn't even realized he had.
As he drank, he noticed the women watching him closely, not in a way that was uncomfortable, but in a way that seemed to study his reactions, his thoughts, and perhaps his very soul. After a few moments of silence, Nadia began to speak. "We want tonight to be different," she said. "Not just ordinary conversation or small talk. We want you to see life through our eyes, to understand experiences that you may never encounter otherwise." Armand leaned back, intrigued. I think I understand," he said slowly.
You want me to learn something from this night?
"Yes," Samira replied.
But learning isn't always about words.
Sometimes it's about observation, feeling, and reaction. Tonight, you'll experience things that may shock you, not because they are harmful, but because they are unexpected. A shiver ran down Armin's spine. He wasn't afraid exactly, but he felt an excitement he hadn't experienced in years. Something about their words hinted at a night full of mysteries and challenges, an evening that would stretch his mind, test his patience, and perhaps even change the way he saw the world. The women asked him to sit closer to the window where the moonlight shone brightest.
The room felt intimate, safe, and yet charged with anticipation. Nadia began with a story, an ordinary memory that seemed simple at first.
She spoke of a summer afternoon long ago, when she and her late husband had traveled to a small village by the sea. The story was full of humor, minor mishaps, and tender moments of love.
As she spoke, Armin found himself drawn in. He could see the scenes vividly in his mind, the waves crashing, the smell of salt in the air, the laughter of a couple completely absorbed in their own world.
Pedestrian. And yet, as the story progressed, it took a sudden turn. Nadia described an unexpected event, a storm that came without warning, scattering the villagers and causing panic. She explained how she and her husband had helped others find safety, how fear and courage intertwined, and how in that moment she had learned more about human nature than in years of ordinary life. Armand listened, captivated. He could feel the fear, the courage, and the unexpected twists of fate through her words. He realized that this night was already living up to its promise of being unlike anything he had experienced before. Then it was Samira's turn. Her story was different, sharper, more intense. She spoke of a business she had once managed, a risky investment that had gone terribly wrong, and the personal challenges she faced during that time. Her words were precise, her tone commanding attention. Armand could sense the emotions behind her actions: stress, determination, frustration, and eventually, triumph. But what shocked him most was how she revealed her vulnerability. For a moment, the confident, controlled woman he had seen earlier melted into someone deeply human. He realized that both women, despite their strength, carried deep experiences of loss, challenge, and perseverance. As the stories ended, there was a silence that felt thick with meaning. Armand sat quietly, trying to process everything. He understood now that the night was not just about stories. It was about lessons, about seeing life in its raw, unfiltered form. He could feel the weight of their experiences, the depth of their resilience, and the unexpected ways they were sharing these truths with him. Then came the unexpected part. Nadia asked him to participate in a small activity, not dangerous, but unusual. She handed him a notebook and a pen.
Write down the first 3 fears that come to your mind, she instructed. No judgment, no hesitation.
Just write what you truly feel. Armand hesitated, then obeyed. As he wrote, he realized how simple the task seemed, yet how difficult it was to be completely honest with oneself. He wrote about his fear of failure, fear of being alone, and fear of making the wrong choices. When he finished, he handed the notebook to Samira. Samira read the entries carefully, her expression thoughtful. These are honest fears, she said softly. And that honesty is the first step toward understanding and courage. Fear is not something to run from. It is something to recognize, accept, and learn from.
Armin felt a strange sense of relief. The women weren't judging him. They were guiding him.
And in that guidance he felt the first real shift of the night. From curiosity to introspection, from observation to personal reflection. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The moon moved across the sky, and the room grew quieter. The fire from the lounge had dimmed, leaving only the soft glow from the lamp and the moonlight. Armand felt a growing sense of connection, not just to the women, but to the stories of life they were revealing, to the lessons hidden in every experience, and to the subtle, shocking truths that awaited him. At one point, Nadia asked him to close his eyes and listen carefully.
The world is full of sounds you never notice, she said. Listen to the quiet, the faint noises, the moments that go unnoticed.
That is where life often speaks the loudest.
Armin closed his eyes and concentrated. He could hear the faint rustle of the trees outside, the occasional distant car, the soft ticking of a clock. At first it seemed ordinary, but gradually he noticed a rhythm, a pattern in the quiet, a gentle harmony in the way the world moved when he truly listened. Life is subtle, Nadia whispered. The shocks, the surprises, the lessons, they are often hidden in the quiet moments. Pay attention, and you will see what others miss. By the time the women suggested that Armin rest, he felt both exhausted and exhilarated. Brr. The night had been quiet, yet intense. Every story, every activity, every lesson seemed to carry a weight he hadn't anticipated. Inspiration. He realized that this night, simple as it seemed at the beginning, was already shaping him, opening his mind, and challenging his perceptions. As he prepared for bed, Samira smiled and said, "Tomorrow will bring more surprises." Inspiration. Tonight was only the beginning. Armin nodded, curiosity mixing with anticipation. He lay down, staring at the ceiling, and found it impossible to sleep immediately. Burst. His mind replayed every story, every lesson, and every subtle movement of the evening. He could feel that something larger was unfolding, something that would continue to challenge him, surprise him, and perhaps even shock him in ways he could not yet imagine. The quiet of the night was comforting, but it was also alive with possibilities. Armin understood that staying here, in this house, with these women, was not just about spending a night. It was about stepping into a world where life was raw, unpredictable, and full of lessons hidden behind ordinary experiences. And he knew that the next steps, the events yet to come, would be far from ordinary. The night had grown deeper, and the house seemed to take on a life of its own. The soft moonlight streaming through the windows cast long, shifting shadows on the walls.
Armin felt a strange mix of anticipation and nervousness.
He had expected an ordinary night, but every moment with Nadia and Samira had proven that this night was far from ordinary. When he stepped out of the guest room, he found both women waiting for him in the lounge, their expressions calm but intense, as if they had been expecting him to join at exactly this moment. The fire had been rekindled, flames dancing with a hypnotic rhythm. The room smelled faintly of jasmine now, mingling with the lingering lavender, giving it an almost magical atmosphere.
Armin, Nadia said softly. Are you ready to continue? I think so, he replied, though he wasn't sure what continuing meant.
Samira gestured toward two chairs placed across from each other near the fireplace. Sit here. Inspiration. Tonight, you will witness something unusual. You must pay attention and respond honestly. The night will test your perception, your patience, and your ability to adapt. Inspiration. He sat down, glancing between the two women. Their eyes sparkled with a quiet energy, the kind that suggested surprises were coming. Surprises he could neither predict nor control. Nadia spoke first. Tonight, we want you to experience life as it sometimes comes, unexpected, challenging, and full of lessons. The first exercise will be observation. Look around carefully and tell us what you notice that seems out of place. Inspiration. Armin looked around the lounge. At first, everything seemed ordinary. Bookshelves, photographs, small decorative objects, and the soft glow of the fire. But as he focused, he began noticing small details. A teacup slightly askew on a tray, a photograph tilted on the wall, a shadow that didn't match the angle of the fire. There, he said cautiously, pointing. That cup isn't aligned with the others. And the picture frame, it's tilted. Good, Samira said, her voice low and approving. Observation is the first skill you must develop. Life often tests us in small ways.
If we fail to notice them, we miss crucial lessons. Armin nodded, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction.
It was a simple exercise, yet he could feel his senses sharpening, his awareness increasing. Then Nadia handed him a small wooden box. Inside this box is something you must find, she said. But you cannot open it immediately. Narration. You must first follow clues we will give you. Each clue will reveal a part of the story you are about to witness. Breath.
Arman's curiosity spiked. He opened the box slightly and saw only a folded piece of paper.
Narration. On it was written a riddle. I am present in every memory, yet unseen by the hurried eye. Narration. I reveal the truth in silence and vanish when ignored.
What am I? He frowned, trying to solve it.
Narration. The two women watched him silently, their expressions unreadable. After a moment, he guessed cautiously, a shadow. Nadia smiled. Correct. Shadows are like hidden truths. They exist even when we don't notice them. Tonight, you will see truths you never expected, hidden in plain sight. This exercise set the tone for the rest of the night. Armin was guided through a series of small, surprising activities, each designed to challenge his perceptions and make him think differently about what he saw and felt. Sometimes it was observing subtle changes in the room. Other times it was responding to small, unusual tasks, like arranging objects in a pattern or recalling a story from memory with added details. But then came the truly shocking moment. Nadia asked him to follow her into a hallway he hadn't noticed before. The walls were lined with photographs, all in black and white. As Arman moved closer, he realized the photos weren't ordinary. They were all of people he had never met, yet each image captured moments of extreme emotion, joy, grief, anger, and surprise. These are people we've known, Nadia explained. Each one has a story of loss, courage, and resilience. Tonight, you will learn to understand the depth of human experience through them. As Armin walked slowly along the hallway, he felt a chill run down his spine. There was something powerful in seeing the raw emotions captured in still images. Some faces smiled, some cried, some stared directly at him, as if they were silently communicating. He realized that life's lessons were not always spoken. They were often felt through observation and empathy. Then Samira handed him a journal and a pencil.
Desperate. Write down the emotions you feel for each person, she instructed. Don't think.
Just feel and write. Arman hesitated but obeyed. He wrote about the joy in some faces, the deep sorrow in others, the strength and determination in the eyes of a few. When he finished, the women read his notes quietly.
You understand more than most do at your age, Samira said finally. You see emotions, truths, and subtleties that are often ignored.
That is why this night is meant for you, to open your mind and heart to the unexpected. Just as Arman began to feel comfortable, a new challenge emerged. Nadia led him into a small room with a large mirror that covered an entire wall. This is the mirror of perception, she said. Look into it and tell us what you see. Armin gazed at his reflection, expecting to see only himself. But the image in the mirror seemed different. It showed him not as he appeared, but as someone weighed by experience, uncertainty, and hidden fears. His expression looked tense, but his eyes revealed curiosity and a hunger for understanding.
What do you see? Nadia asked.
I see myself, he replied slowly. But it's like I'm someone who has lived more than I have.
Someone who carries weight and experience I don't fully understand yet. That's correct, Samira said.
Mirrors do not always show the surface. Sometimes they reflect what is hidden inside, the lessons we have yet to learn, the challenges we have yet to face. Tonight, you will confront parts of yourself you didn't know existed. Armin felt a rush of emotions. Curiosity, fear, awe. He realized the night had transformed from a simple gathering into a series of life lessons disguised as games and exercises. Bert. Each moment brought a new challenge, a new perspective, and sometimes a small shock that made him question his understanding of the world. Then came a moment that truly surprised him.
Nadia asked him to sit while she performed a simple ritual, not magical but deeply symbolic. She lit a candle and placed it on the table between them.
Brr. Samira handed Arman a small piece of paper and a pencil. Write down a fear you have never spoken aloud, Samira instructed. Narration.
Fold it and place it under the candle. Watch as the flame touches it gently. It represents facing your fear, not escaping it.
Brr. The act seemed unusual, almost theatrical, yet there was a profound meaning in it. He wrote down a fear he had kept hidden for years, his fear of failure and disappointing those he cared about. Brr. Folding the paper carefully, he placed it under the candle. As the small flame flickered over it, he felt a wave of release, as if sharing his fear in that moment made it lighter, more manageable. The women smiled, their expressions calm and encouraging.
You see, Nadia said softly, sometimes the shocks in life are not about what happens outside of us.
Breath. They are about what we discover inside ourselves. Our courage, our fears, our resilience. Hours passed, and Arman continued to be guided through subtle, surprising challenges. He was asked to recall distant memories, to confront small anxieties, and to observe the smallest details in the room. Every exercise, every story, every interaction carried a deeper lesson. Narration. By the time the night reached its peak, Arman felt exhausted but enlightened. The two widows had created an experience that tested his mind, emotions, and perceptions. What had begun as a simple invitation had become a night of unexpected revelations, life lessons, and profound understanding. Finally, Nadia and Samira led him back to the lounge. Her head. A fire had burned low, casting only faint shadows across the room. Arman sat down, feeling the weight of the night settle over him. Narration. He realized that the shocks he had experienced were not frightening in a traditional sense. They were shocks of insight, understanding, and self-discovery. Brr, you've done well, Samira said softly. You faced the unexpected, observed carefully, and responded honestly. Brr. That is what this night was about. Not tricks, not games, but lessons hidden in plain sight. Arman nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and awe. Bert. He had come expecting an ordinary night, perhaps some mild surprises. Instead, he had experienced a journey into observation, understanding, and the depths of human experience. As he finally returned to the guest room, his mind raced with thoughts of the night. He could feel that tomorrow would bring more surprises, more challenges, and perhaps more shocking revelations. Right. But he also felt a newfound sense of confidence, awareness, and respect for life, for others, and for himself. Lying in bed, he stared at the ceiling, reflecting on everything he had seen, heard, and felt. The house was silent, the moonlight soft, and the air calm. Yet somewhere, in that quiet, Arman knew that the night was far from over. Narration. There were still lessons to be learned, truths to be revealed, and experiences that would leave him truly changed. Narration. And as sleep finally began to claim him, he realized that the shocks of the night were not about fear. They were about discovery, growth, and the power of seeing the world with new eyes. Narration. Arman woke to the soft glow of morning sunlight streaming through the curtains. The room felt calm, peaceful, and almost untouched by the intensity of the previous night. For a moment, he lay still, letting his mind wander over the events that had unfolded. The stories, the exercises, the subtle challenges. They were all fresh in his memory, leaving a mixture of awe, reflection, and gratitude. He dressed slowly, not wanting to leave the warmth and comfort of the house just yet. When he stepped into the hallway, he noticed how quiet everything seemed. The fire in the lounge had burned down to soft embers, and the familiar lavender and jasmine scents lingered faintly, comforting and grounding him. As he entered the lounge, he found Nadia and Samira already awake, sitting together with calm smiles. Their presence was serene, yet it carried the same quiet intensity he had felt throughout the night. They gestured for him to sit down, and he obeyed, still carrying the weight and wonder of the night in his chest.
Good morning, Armand, Nadia said softly. Did you sleep well? Better than I expected, he admitted.
I keep thinking about last night, about everything you made me see and feel. It was different.
That was the intention. Life often surprises us in ways we cannot predict.
Sometimes those surprises are gentle, other times they are sharp. But each teaches us something about ourselves and the world around us.
Armand nodded. He felt a deep sense of clarity he hadn't experienced before.
The night had been intense, challenging, and at times confusing, but it had also opened his mind. He had faced his fears in small exercises, observed truths hidden in plain sight, and learned to see life from new perspectives.
Nadia leaned forward. Do you understand now why we asked you to stay? The lessons weren't in the stories alone, nor in the exercises.
They were in your reactions, your honesty, and your willingness to participate fully. That is what truly matters. Armand took a deep breath. Yes, I think I understand.
The shocks! They weren't meant to scare me.
They were meant to make me think, to notice, and to reflect. I've never experienced anything like this before.
Exactly, Samara said. Life often presents us with unexpected challenges.
It is not the challenge itself that matters, but how we respond to it.
Last night you responded with awareness, courage, and honesty.
That is why the night was meaningful.
Everything seemed ordinary. The furniture, the photographs, the faint smell of lavender. But he knew that beneath the surface he had experienced extraordinary lessons. The ordinary and extraordinary had merged seamlessly, leaving him with a sense of wonder and respect for the women who had guided him.
Nadia then suggested a final exercise.
Before you leave, she said,
we want you to reflect on something. Think of one lesson, one moment, or one revelation from last night that you will carry with you forever.
Despair.
Armand closed his eyes, letting the memories wash over him. He thought of the hallway of photographs and the emotions captured in each face.
He remembered the mirror and the reflection that had revealed not just his appearance, but his hidden strengths and fears. He recalled the candle ritual, the simple act that had allowed him to confront his deepest fear without judgment or shame. Finally, he opened his eyes and spoke. The lesson I will carry is, life is full of subtle truths, and we often miss them if we don't pay attention. We need to observe, reflect, and confront our fears honestly. That is how we grow.
Both women nodded approvingly. Well said, Samira said.
That is the essence of last night. Growth comes from understanding, not avoiding, from experiencing rather than ignoring.
And you have taken those steps. Armand felt a surge of gratitude.
Not just for the guidance, but for the experience itself. He realized that what had shocked him wasn't the unknown. It was the depth of understanding and emotion he had gained in such a short time. Brr. He had come seeking curiosity, and he was leaving with wisdom. As they prepared breakfast together, the atmosphere was light and warm. Inspiration. The women laughed softly as they shared small stories from their lives, some humorous, some poignant.
Our man joined in, feeling fully included, part of something larger than himself.
The simple act of eating together, sharing tea and bread, felt meaningful in a way he had never experienced before. During the meal, Nadia spoke quietly. Bert, life sometimes brings people together in unexpected ways. You came to our home as a guest, but you leave as someone who understands more about observation, empathy, and courage. That is a rare thing. Armin smiled, feeling the weight of her words.
I'll never forget this night. It wasn't just about being invited or spending time, it was about experiencing life differently.
I feel change. Yes, Samira said softly. And that change is what matters most. The world is full of ordinary moments, but it is the attention we give to them that makes life extraordinary. Remember that, Arman.
After breakfast, Armand helped tidy the kitchen. It was a small act, but in that quiet, mundane task, he realized how much he had learned about patience, mindfulness, and the importance of small actions.
Even ordinary tasks could hold lessons if approached with awareness. Before leaving, Nadia handed him a small envelope.
A reminder, she said. Open it when you feel the need to reflect on last night. It will guide you back to the lessons you experienced here. Armin took the envelope carefully, sensing that it held something significant, though he didn't know exactly what.
Thank you, he said sincerely.
For everything. I've learned more in these few hours than I have in years.
The two women smiled warmly. You were willing to experience, to observe, and to reflect. That made all the difference. Now, take that understanding with you, and let it shape how you live your life.
Armin left the house with a mixture of emotions: gratitude, wonder, and a quiet excitement.
The streets were calm, the morning sun bright, and the world seemed more alive than it had the day before. He realized that his perception of life had shifted. He noticed the small details, the pattern of sunlight through the trees, the chirping of birds, the rhythm of passing cars, in ways he never had before. Driving back home, he thought about how ordinary life often hides extraordinary lessons. The night with Nadia and Samira had been full of surprises, small challenges, and subtle shocks, not harmful, but transformative. He understood now that sometimes growth comes not from grand gestures, but from paying attention to the details, facing fears honestly, and being open to experiences that initially seem unusual. Arriving home, Armin placed the envelope on his desk, a symbol of the night that had changed him. He reflected on the two women, their wisdom, their resilience, and their ability to guide without forcing. They had shown him that life could be both gentle and shocking, ordinary and extraordinary, all at once. As he settled into his daily routine, he noticed small changes in himself. He listened more attentively, observed more carefully, and approached challenges with a thoughtful calmness. The lessons from the night stayed with him, subtly influencing his actions, thoughts, and choices. Days later, he opened the envelope Nadia had given him. Inside was a handwritten note, simple but profound. Life is full of surprises. Observe, reflect, and embrace them. Fear is a teacher, curiosity is a guide, and experience is the path to understanding.
Reading it, Armin felt a wave of clarity. He understood that the night had been more than just an experience. It had been a journey.
A journey that would shape the way he approached life, relationships, and challenges from that day forward. He realized that what had shocked him most wasn't a single moment or action. It was the depth of understanding, the intensity of observation, and the unexpected lessons hidden in the ordinary.
The night had been transformative, not through spectacle, but through insight.
Armin smiled, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. He knew that he would carry the memories, the lessons, and the subtle shocks of that night with him forever. They had taught him to see life more clearly, to face challenges with courage, and to find extraordinary meaning in the ordinary. And as he went about his day, he realized that the true surprise wasn't just the night itself. It was the lasting change it had brought to him, quietly reshaping his perception of the world and his place within it. The two widowed women, with their wisdom and kindness, had given him a gift far greater than he could have imagined, the ability to truly see, understand, and grow.